Hi everyone, thank you very much for attending my presentation today on the Good Guts program and Good Guts game plan actually. And today you're going to learn how you can easily repair, restore and reclaim your gut and brain health using my body repair method. Bit about me, I was fostered out at the age of 2 as my mum had a mental illness and I was given up to the foster care system. I also lost my best friend from university shortly after graduation to a brain tumour. So both of those had a huge impact on my life. Like a lot of other people would have things like this happen to them as well. Both were pretty heart-wrenching events that left me at a loss as I felt like I couldn't help them and I'd failed them in some regard. I started my own osteo-spinal clinic in 2012 and never really felt that I was able to make an impact on the internal health of people. I was able to help with their ligaments and their tendons and their structural alignment. However, I wasn't able to help them with their inflammation or mental health. I witnessed the rise in chronic health and disease for the clients who came through my door and my own friends and family, and I still couldn't do anything about it. And this is how the idea for this program grew, as I wanted to provide a preventative and supportive method for people's chronic health challenges. And as a mum of 2, and like most parents, it's inbuilt in us to survive with the species, and that involves making sure that our young survive so you do anything that you can to keep them healthy because you love them, but the biological function is so that the species can survive. So that's the main reasons, personal reasons I wanted to create this program. Another thing is because after 2 years of researching medical journals, because I'm a bit of a health research nerd, I cracked the root cause of most illnesses and chronic diseases we're suffering today. I launched this program with the advent of the coronavirus, as I've had to close my clinic and there's no time like the present to boost your immune system. Winter is coming. I want to get you on the journey to amazing health and well-being and enable your body to handle what is coming this year and to thrive in our modern world. Because unlike our great-grandparents' generation, like 3 generations ago, our food, our water, our soils, and the air we breathe are no longer as they were back then. And this has a huge impact on our health today and will do into the future. I have gone through a lot of other programs in the marketplace and seeing the various diets out there, the dietary advice they're giving out, and none of them seem to address the root cause of people's ill health on a permanent basis. I find their clients are overwhelmed with all the specifications of the programs, all the different vitamins and herbs that they are required to take, and especially the restrictions on food. Lengthy food meal preparations seems to impact on their lifestyle. I've got a friend that follows the GAPS diet and has done for a couple of years with her 2 boys. And she said she seems to spend most of her time in the kitchen. So for people who do not have time to do that, it takes a huge toll on their lifestyle, especially if they're a busy business person or even a stay-at-home mum. We all have other things to do, so we need something, and that's why I created this program, because none of these programs detoxed every cell in the body like mine does. A lot of them address just the gut, but toxins and things like that can be stored in any part of the body. So if you're just addressing gut, it's not going to remove them from other parts. Also, getting back to the meal preparations and and things like that, and time that people take. You know, doing it over 12, 18 months is a long time. So my program is short and sweet, and um, much easier to do and maintain than the others. And that's what I wanted to talk about. Is so when people don't have the time to follow the current advice out there to change everything, spend a long time cooking and stuff like that, then they tend to resort to medication to reduce inflammation and autoimmune issues. Unfortunately, medication has some really serious side effects. So, for instance, rheumatoid arthritis or any anti-immune medication, it's actually on the safety data sheet that comes with the medication to say that it will cause cancer. So um, yeah, you've got the short-term gains of the stopping the inflammation and that, but it suppresses the immune system, so you're open to infectious diseases later and things like that. So I've solved all of these issues by using the body repair method in my program as a proven way to remove, repair, restore, and reclaim your health. And I'll be covering the details of this at the end of my talk. So I'm just going to switch over to the presentation now. If you have any questions, please leave them until the end of this presentation and we can answer them then. Thank you. Okay, so as you can see from the slide here, it's the Good Guts program. So a lot of people say that we have two brains. We have the brain in our head and the brain in our stomach. So, and you'll find out why shortly that people say that we do. So I've already covered a little bit about me, and yeah, I classify myself as a body mechanic because I currently manually help people's bodies, and also now I'm able to help people internally, which I'm really pleased to do. So yeah, a mechanic analyzes the problem in a person's car. In my case, I do in the body, and then I offer the tools and the equipment and the knowledge in order to fix it. And yeah, and so that's what I do. So on our talk today, we'll be talking about a few different topics. So just to give you a bit of an overview, we'll be talking about what is the gut, why is it is important, what is the immune system, the body and brain immune organs, so give you a bit of an idea of where they are located in the body, and barrier protection of these systems, inflammation, foreign invaders, impacts of imbalances when they come into the system, the Good Guts game plan solution, and the game plan rules. So let's begin. Right, so what is the gut? As you can see from this diagram here, it starts in the mouth. So what happens is that when we take food in, our teeth chew it up and reduce it in size. And our salivary glands there, which are actually produce enzymes, which start to actually break down the food in preparation for it reaching the stomach. So those the salivary glands also coat the food and make it a little bit slippery so that it can go down the esophagus there that you can see and into our stomach. So when it reaches our stomach, we have hydrochloric acid in the stomach, and that allows us to digest food further. Some food is actually absorbed straight into the bloodstream from the stomach, and the same with some liquids. Other liquids and foods in a smaller form continue through to the small intestine, where the gallbladder actually drops some bile in there, and that helps break down the fats. And when it's in the small intestine, Um, bacteria and well, the small intestine and the large intestine, there's a colony of bacteria in there, good and bad bacteria, and a lot of other different things I'll cover in a second. But they all have the job of actually helping break down the food even more. And then it's absorbed into the bloodstream from the lining of the intestines into the bloodstream, and then our body utilises it to repair and maintain our body. Also, along the way, it's also physically still sort of masticated by the action of the intestine as well, until it passes all the way through and out the rectum and the anus. So that is the gut. So it should be a complete tube system. So that means that it should go from the top and out through the bottom, and the walls of the stomach and the intestines should allow small amounts of food out, so that we can utilize them. So it's one way that our body can produce food, produce energy and building blocks is from what we take in. Right, so why is the gut so important? I've just mentioned if we didn't have a gut, then we wouldn't be able to absorb our food. I've touched a little bit about the microbiota, which is the microbiome. So that's can be protozoa, viruses, bacteria, fungi, and they all live in harmony most of the time in the microbiome and keep each other in check when everything's operating as it should. And the microbiome can actually communicate with the brain. So as an example, you probably all experienced it when you eat sugar. The bad bacteria actually go and have a party. They reproduce quite rapidly and make quite a large amount of themselves, and they actually send signals to the brain to make you want to eat more of it. So the bacteria send signals to the brain, and then the brain also sends signals via the vagus nerve, which is on the diagram on the left here with all the yellow squiggly lines. That's actually a huge nerve. And as it says there in the diagram, it has influence on motility, secretion, and nutrient delivery and microbial balance. So when we're under extreme stress, that nerve can actually switch off, because that nerve controls just the everyday functions that we don't have to think about in our body, like digestion and things like that, and motility. So when it is switched off, then that means that your gut stops moving. Then you have issues with bacterial overgrowth and things like that happening. So it has a huge flow-on effect. So everything needs to be operating smoothly. So stress, there's quite a few different things that can impact on this whole relationship that goes on here, and we'll cover that in a little bit more. But the most important thing to note, the reason why the gut is so important, is that microbiome there and the integrity, so the lining of the gut. When that is breached, that's when things that shouldn't be there actually get into the blood supply. And then we have, and I'll touch on it in the next slide, we have the immune system is there and has very strong relationship with the digestive system, because it's there as the army and the sentries of the immune system. So the immune system helps to protect us against the diseases caused by these tiny invaders, such as viruses, bacteria, and parasites. And the immune system is made up of specialised organs, cells, and tissues that work together to destroy these invaders. So if we didn't have it, then every time we ate something that was a little bit bad, or we drank water that wasn't particularly good for us, then the human species wouldn't have evolved very well. So it's a very important part of our bodies is our immune system, and when they go wrong is one of the reasons why we're in the predicament for autoimmune issues today and inflammation issues. Okay. So this is just a more in-depth look at the immune system, and the reason I put it in here so you can see that it's not just the gut that it is the immune system is linked to. It has a variety of different functions, sort of like different. You've got the infantry, which is like your first line of defence in an army, and then behind the scenes you've got the cavalry, which is the second line of defence. So our skin as an external barrier actually is quite important because it has prevents bad bacteria and things like that from entering the body, because the blood supply is very close to the surface of the body, and it can actually absorb a lot of things straight into the blood supply, and that can be the problem with yeah, a lot of things like using the wrong products can actually transfer them through to the blood supply and be a toxin to the body. Right. Right. Okay, so the organs of the immune system. This is just gives you more of an idea, as I was talking before, of how closely linked everything is to the circulatory system. So the tonsils and adenoids are actually at the top, and they, of course, along with the other nodes, actually are sort of like the army barracks. So they store um, the infantry and the cavalry in there. And when when the sentries that are travelling through the blood supply detect a foreign invader, they will send signals back, and then these different nodes or army barracks will actually release the infantry out into the bloodstream and to attack the foreign invaders. And the immune system actually has its own drainage vessels, and it's called the lymphatic system. So you may have heard of the lymphatic system, and it is a one-way drain. So when the immune system cleans up the cells, all of the cellular waste actually goes straight from the lymphatic system into the blood supply, and then it either goes to the liver, or the kidneys deal with it, and it's passed out as waste. Unfortunately, when the nodes sometimes trap viruses and bacteria, and therefore they get a bit sore. You know, when you get a bit of a cold and the lymph nodes underneath your jaw can swell up. That's what happens there, is that sometimes they're trapped in there, the bacteria, and the immune system can't destroy it straight away, and then you get inflammation happening there. So that's why that happens. So this is just when we start getting down to the cellular level, and we're talking about the different barriers that are there in the body. So in the brain, it's called the blood-brain barrier, and it actually prevents immune cells, the sentries, or the immune cells that are traveling through the blood stream. It prevents them to get into the actual brain, which is really important. So when that barrier is breached, it lets in a lot of things that can affect the functioning of the brain. So you end up with fuzzy brain happening. It sets up inflammation in the brain. So Alzheimer's and dementia, or any host of mental illnesses can occur when that system is breached, when the walls are breached, so to speak. Right, and when we get to the gut, it also has a barrier, and generally food particles, really small food particles, pass through the cells and into the bloodstream, which is fine, and the body can then go and use them to build new cells and that sort of thing. The problem arises is when the those tight junctions, which is the gap between the cells, stop working, and then bacteria that are in the gut, even if they might be beneficial bacteria or viruses or food particles, when anything that's not meant to go through goes through that gap and into the bloodstream, that's when the sentries put on a high alert and say, you know, there's some foreign invaders and we need to do something about them. Ooh. Sorry, I didn't know what happened there. Meant to click on the next screen. So when these foreign particles actually enter the bloodstream, they can travel to anywhere in the body and they just lodge there. So what then happens is inflammation happens. And this is showing what happens in the skin when the skin is breached, so as a barrier. But this happens in the gut, it happens in the brain. So foreign particles enter the immune system, that's these little purple dots here, come to help out and mop up the damaged tissue and to start rebuilding and repair. But unfortunately, as you say, see over to the left there, it says harmful things enter the body, and yeah, that's what happens. So this is where we get to the crux of the issue. So what we've just covered before has basically been a little bit of anatomy and physiology overview of what happens in the body. And now we get to the actual root causes of some of the issues that we're experiencing health-wise at the moment. So all of these triggers that are mentioned down on the right-hand side here can cause an imbalance in our microflora or our microbiome, which is a little community, as I said before. Some of the allergens, for an example, can be genetically modified foods, such as BT corn. So that's corn that's been engineered to actually have glyphosate inside it so that it actually kills insects if they try and eat it. Other allergens that aren't genetically modified are grasses and seeds. When we're talking about that, we're talking about wheat. And wheat has a lot of different components in it, and one of the components is gluten, which a lot of people, it's becoming more commonplace now, actually receive a reaction from gluten. And it's pretty serious actually, because people that do react to gluten and like quite severely, their risk of death is increases sixfold when they actually ingest gluten. So it can be quite a really important, it's quite an important issue. And the reason why is because the gluten resembles our own tissue. And when we look at wheat as a whole, biologically, we do not have any enzymes, humans do not have any enzymes to digest wheat at all, or grasses. So we are not, we're not a cow or a camel or another animal that actually eats this as a everyday food stuff. And therefore, when wheat comes into our body, everyone reacts to it. And if you have a leaky gut, then those wheat molecules can get passed into the bloodstream and wreak havoc in the body. So wheat is definitely something that needs to be removed from our food supply. Unfortunately, due to our industrialized food system, so our packaged foods, the wheat is in absolutely everything. Other allergens are food additives. So what food additives do, they actually can get into the body and stimulate the autoimmunity, because they the body sees them as being similar to our own tissues and will attack it when they attach to our cells. and can also lead to cancer. So not very good. Some of the toxins that are out there, I mentioned before, people applying things to their skin that can get in. So a toxin is anything that causes the cells to produce free radicals or kill them. And what I mean by free radicals is that it oxidizes the cell, so it causes the cell to become unstable, and then that can set up reactions with other cells, and we have a lot of cells dying that shouldn't, and it can turn cells into cancerous cells. So toxins, they also kill our microbiome, our microbiota, if you will, and they do this. So things such as mercury. So a lot of people still have mercury fillings. My husband just had his removed over Christmas time, and so the mercury, as well as getting past the blood-brain barrier, can actually eradicate or strongly affect the microbiome in your gut. And this is really important as far as vaccines, because vaccines have thermosol in them, and that is mercury. So when you've got a brand new baby whose immune system is still being built, and you start taking out some of the microbiome there, similar to giving antibiotics to anyone really, that also takes out the microbiome, and therefore bad bacteria can build up and leading to problems. Okay. As far as the bacterial culture goes, when you compare third world countries, they have a really diverse and strong microbiome. Their guts are very strong, and you can easily understand that, because when people from first world country go and visit, when they drink the local water and things like that, we become very sick because our systems are just not used to that level of diversity of microbes. And they've found that after 3 generations of a family moving from a third world country to a first world country, that then their great-grandchildren end up having their microbiome has reduced, similar to other people in a first world country. And they can get sick if they go back and visit as well. And people living on farms, like they've looked at the microbiome of people that lives in farms as well as living in the city, and they find that their gut flora is so much more diverse than kids living in the city or people living in the city. So therefore, there's less. They have less autoimmune issues as well. And the importance of all these as invaders is because we've just touched on what happens when the gut or the brain becomes leaky. And they say that 90% of people in the US actually have a leaky gut due to all these factors listed on the screen here. And I would say that would be the case in most first world countries. I've touched on some medications there in the past that can impact things like, what are they? Corticosteroids and things like that can suppress the immune system. And an interesting one about stress, I talked about a little bit before with the vagus nerve, but stress they've found even in elite athletes can cause because they're operating at a quite high stress level, and it's quite intense, can actually cause a leaky gut. And chlorinated water, so that's just a toxin. Chlorine is a toxin, and it can kill our microbiome. And low stomach acid. So I talked about large food particles getting through previously, And so if we have low stomach acid, then there's not enough acid to dissolve all the food that comes down, and that can cause a lot of issues. And of course, radiation, there's more and more of that happening every day and being rolled out as we speak. Even your Wi-Fi at home and things like that. And it has been shown, short-term studies have shown that there's no issue, it's just long-term exposure. And since we're exposed to it non-stop, then something to think about. And it makes all cells leaky. So that's not a good thing. Right, I think we've covered that one pretty well. So a lot of people know autoimmune diseases as a result of the body attacking itself. But really, in reality, it's not the body attacking itself, it's the body responding to a non-cell invader, like a foreign invader. For example, glyphosate makes the body see itself as a foreign invader because the molecule of glyphosate comes in and it attaches to a site on the cell and makes the cell look like a foreign thing that it doesn't recognize, and so the body attacks it. So that's not a good thing. It is important to note for prevention, really, to keep in the back of your mind that antibodies to all of these invaders that we experience on a daily basis actually appear 5 to 15 years before the disease will come out. So you may appear healthy now, but it's not to say that you don't have the antibodies already in your body. And there is a way that you can get these tested for to see whether, say, you've got antibodies to your brain tissue or something, which is really important because if you do, then there can be, you're more likely to get dementia and things later in life. Autoimmune diseases are because, our immune system is so overstimulated with all of the toxins and everything coming in on a daily basis than it was over 100 years ago. So it's overburdened. So its role is generally to mop up, repair and rebuild, but sometimes it just keeps going. So, it's just, it's just overstimulated, and that can happen to people that have food allergies. So when they ingest something little, it just goes into hyperdrive and, such a huge, big reaction. So allergies are an autoimmune issue, food allergies, and something really important to think of. And the body is able to remove some toxins, and it does that quite well. However, as I said a few times now, when we're exposed to so much, the body just can't remove it all. And there's just some things such as lead that will actually go into our bones or our brain, and the body can't remove it from there. So something to think about there. And I'm not sure if you know of someone that has an autoimmune issue, but they can experience pain and their quality of life is quite limited. So someone, for example, with irritable bowel syndrome, that is an autoimmune issue, and some of those people cannot leave home because they can't leave the safety of, for a couple of hours to have a toilet close by. And the rise of mental health disorders is increasing rapidly. Even things like dementia is now, and Alzheimer's is now being recorded in 40-year-old people when it used to be an old person's issue. So all these diseases and that are occurring more frequently, and we all will know someone that either has one or will develop one. Okay, let's get on to some good news, shall we? The good news is that the human body is an amazing machine. given the right nutrition and the tools, it can heal itself. One of the tools that we need, though, is in order to protect it, because it is constantly, as I've said before, being bombarded with toxins and everything on a daily basis. So we need to be able to don't just do a once-off detox. It needs to be something that is done on a regular basis, and not a detox diet, because they only target the gut and they don't target the whole body. Okay, so when you leave this webinar today, I just want you to think of a few questions. I'm sure you've got some great info, right? But I bet you haven't done a gut-brain repair, because it can be a little bit overwhelming, right? So what can you do about it? Is it okay if I show you a fast and easy way to make all of this happen for you? Oh, great. I see some comments there. That's wonderful. Yeah, sure. Okay, so I'm really excited, everyone, to introduce you to the Good Guts Game Plan. So this is my specialised program to help remove, repair, restore and reclaim your health. So step one, we're going to show you how to remove toxins and bad foods from your body. For example, our ancestors, just as a side note, used to eat about 1,000 different plants a year. If you sat down and added up what you eat now, you'd find that our diversity of our foods is not that great. It's not to say I'm going to make you eat 1,000 different foodstuffs, but I'm just saying that all the different foodstuffs they used to eat means that their microbiome was quite healthy. Step two is repair. So we're going to, through introducing some good foods and nutrients and minerals and things like that, we're going to be able to help the body repair itself, because it does that automatically. It just needs the building blocks in order to repair the house. And we're going to restore the microbiome, so allow it to get back to a normal state of being, and help the gut lining repair and the brain lining repair as well. And that means at step 4, you can reclaim your life and be how we were meant to be. So the good thing about the Good Gut Game Plan is it's able to restore vitality, energy and health sooner to your body. So it allows you to live the life you always wanted, and you might say, well, can I do it another way? And as I've said before, sure, you can follow the GAPS diet or food elimination diets, and you can also go to the chemist and buy all your vitamins and minerals and things like that. Just be aware that a lot of those are not bioavailable, so that means that our bodies can't utilise them, and you're wasting a lot of money. And also you might be taking the incorrect supplements for your what you actually need. Also, if you are mineral deficient, and most people are mineral deficient as well because of our poor soils that have been over-farmed and not remineralised over time, then a lot of your vitamins and any health foods that you buy are a waste of money, because your body can't absorb the nutrients without the minerals. A lot of people doing things like this lose the motivation and drive, and also there's no support when you're doing it by yourself. Another thing with the detox juices, smoothies, and those sort of things, when you ingest a liquid without chewing, you're bypassing those enzymes in the mouth from the saliva. So therefore the food's going into the gut, into the stomach, and it is not being digested properly. If you happen to have large chunks of food, then that can then cause issues with digestion as well, and bacterial overgrowth and things like that. So I don't generally recommend smoothies as a breakfast. And you want to be getting the best out of your nutrition as well. So if you're not absorbing enough because you're not getting the right enzymes, then it's not such a good idea. Detox juices as well. It depends what you're detoxing from. Is it for fat loss? And if so, yeah, it's a whole other topic for that. But detox gut cleansers only address the gut, and they don't address the rest of the body, as I've mentioned before. So don't clean out the bones or the brain tissue or any other tissue in the body. So on here, I've got a bit of an overview as to what's included in the program. So the total value is actually $7,400, and it is a 30-day risk-free money-back guarantee. And I'm sure that for the launch of my new program, I've actually done a bit of a discount. So as it says here at the bottom of the screen, I'm actually launching it for $9.97. So this is available to those people who really want to make a change in their lives and their health. And applications close at midnight, Monday, the 11th of May. And a full overview of what's involved in the program is available by filling in a form at the bottom of this video. And as I said, $9.97 for 90 days or 12 weeks is pretty good value. There's a lot included in there, and I'm sure you'll get some great results. So for those who are watching the replay or missed this recording, you can definitely register your interest for the next round of intakes. There'll be a few run during the year. I just don't have the dates at this stage. Thank you very much for listening. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to working with you and your families, because this is open to a whole family, to help you feel better. Thank you very much and have a great day.